How's it going, sports card fans, wrestling collectors? Tom from CollectAWrestlePalooza. It's that time of the week. We're doing another top 5, and this week we're counting down the top 5 highest prices paid for vintage wrestling t-shirts. This is one of my favorite categories because every time I look at the top 5 for vintage t-shirts, I see something new that I've never seen before. So it's a category that's a lot of fun. There's a lot of different stuff that sells for top dollar. It's not the same things every single time. So you're going to want to stay tuned to see all 5. And then at the end of the video, I'll show you what was number 1 the last time I counted down this category, which I believe was about 1 year ago. So let's get to it. Let's count down the top 5 prices.
CollectAWrestlePalooza. CollectAWrestlePalooza.
First, let's go over the criteria for this video. If you've been here before, thank you for coming back. I really appreciate the support. You know how it works. It's pretty simple. I go on eBay, I type in a search term, and I filter out the top 5 highest prices. This week, the search term is professional wrestling t-shirt, and the top 5 highest prices are a varied collection of really interesting shirts. And I try to filter out anything that looks like it is suspicious bids or shill bids, or it looks like the auction wasn't complete. And I choose eBay auctions for my filters because I feel like that's indicative of what people are actually willing to pay, as opposed to buy it now, which is a name the price and can be a flash in the pan. So let's get to it. Let's get going. Coming in at number 5 is a 1989 Jim the Anvil Neidhart t-shirt, which sold for $256. What? Jim the Anvil Neidhart for $256? He's not even one of the top names. Well, he is. He's a Hart, from the legendary Hart family. But the reason I think that this t-shirt sold for top dollar and appears in the top 5 is because of the graphic design. Look at it. Look at the font. It looks almost like Art Deco or something from the 60s. It's I Love Lucy. It's that type of just look, cartoonish graphic design, but at the same time, it also has a really stunning 1980s, 1990s aesthetic with Jim the Anvil Neidhart's spiked beard and his grimace and his laugh and all of that stuff. The Anvil in quotation marks. It just screams 1980s Hart Foundation wrestling. So that's why it sold for that much. It's very nostalgic. And the Hart Foundation are one of the best tag teams. If you were around in the 80s and you remember, they just worked the ring. Their matches were fun to watch. They were amazing heels. They always knew how to cheat and make it look fun to the viewer, and the matches as a kid were always really interesting. I didn't like the Hart Foundation, and then when I got older, they became one of my favorites. That's how it worked. I turned myself from hating the heels to loving the heels because I really appreciated the art of the cheat. It was just what made 1980s professional wrestling special, with Bobby Heenan and Jesse Ventura and Gorilla Monsoon and Would You Stop and all that stuff. Again, if you're in your 40s and you remember, you know what I'm talking about. So that's what this t-shirt's all about. Number 5, 1989, Jim the Anvil Neidhart. Number 4 this week is a vintage Ring of Honor AJ Styles t-shirt, which sold for $295. There's no such thing as a rookie in t-shirts, is there? Maybe this is an AJ Styles rookie. If you're a fan of AJ Styles and you know that, please leave a comment and let us know. But I'd have to imagine this would be his first t-shirt, because I don't know if he wrestled before Ring of Honor, did he? Or was he just in the indies at that point? So not a very attractive shirt, if you're going to ask me. It's pretty bland. It's got that really weird, cool blue and then the white lettering, so it looks not extremely professional or high quality, but that also is what makes it cool. It's a vintage Ring of Honor shirt, and it's AJ Styles. So it sold for $295. If you know more about it, leave some comments, but to me, that's why I think that it sold for that much. Number 3 this week is an amazing shirt from the 90s. Look at this. This is a vintage Kane t-shirt, which sold for $305. I just love the graphic. Kane was such a weird-looking superstar. He was a masked wrestler, and he was scary, but looking back, that actually is pretty silly looking. He has this unitard that he was wearing that has black claw marks and this really weird red, body covering. It just doesn't look cool, doesn't look scary. But back in the day, Kane was the man. He was the guy that went against The Undertaker, tagged with The Undertaker, was Undertaker's brother, was his enemy, all of those various stories. And he ripped the door off the steel cage and he took his mask off and his face was burnt. And there were just all these really incredibly weird storylines around Kane, and now he's a mayor. And my favorite phase of Kane is the bald, shirtless Kane. I think that's when he looks tough. He almost looks like King Kong Bundy with leather pants or something like that. I don't know. He always reminded me of King Kong Bundy when he was bald, but he was a big guy. He was a really legit monster, a real legit superstar, and this t-shirt just screams that era, which is why it sold for $305. Number 2 this week is my favorite t-shirt from the top 5. Just take a look at that Big Van Vader versus Sting. They're tied together. I'm imagining it probably was, what do they call that, a bull rope match or something like that. And then Big Van Vader's got this wand with a skull on top, and they look like He-Man action figures, the way their torsos and legs are situated. And Big Van Vader is really weird looking. He doesn't actually look that way, and it just looks like a 1990s toy advertisement, which is what really was attractive at the time. If you were a little boy or a kid, you looked at the professional wrestlers and you loved the action figures. You loved the fantasy of being able to create your own narratives in your head, and that's what it really tapped into. And that's why I think men in their 40s, such as myself, yearn for that nostalgia, is designs like this. Back in the day, I'd see that and I would just want to see that Big Van Vader versus Sting match. I mean, come on, WCW Super Brawl 3? How awesome does that sound? The graphic design is really, really amazing. I'm guessing it's a pretty rare shirt because I've never seen it before, and WCW shirts tend not to be as, they don't have as high a print run from this era as some of the WWF stuff does, so it sold for $590. And number 1 this week is another WCW shirt. This is from 1993. It's Ravishing Rick Rude, and it sold for $600. Talk about another underrated superstar, Ravishing Rick Rude. I think now in the 2000s and 2020 and beyond, people are starting to really appreciate the gimmick of Ravishing Rick Rude. My favorite memory is when he was on Regis and Kathy Lee, and he did a rude awakening to Kathy Lee Gifford, and they were running around the studio and up the stairs, and he was greasy, and he had the sailor tattoo, and he was on morning talk show like Regis and Kathy Lee. I just thought that was really, really cool and a lot of fun. But what a cool gimmick. Again, at the time, I hated him because as a young boy, it was just a threat to have this man, kissing all the women, and it just didn't seem like he was a guy you were supposed to like. And now looking back, those are the types of superstars that I just think really captured the imagination. Ravishing Rick Rude and Jake the Snake and Honky Tonk Man and all of those heels that just made you hate them. And the WCW run of Rick Rude, I don't know if it was as good as the WWF run, but his t-shirts are certainly going to be more rare. And also, sadly, in match with Sting, he hurt his back and was never able to wrestle again, but I think that's why he put on the suit and became a manager and was worked into the storyline. Thankfully, after that, was still able to be a character in professional wrestling, even though he couldn't wrestle. But this one's from his wrestling days, 1993, $600. And let's take a look now at the top shirt 1 year ago. Man, $1,402 for a Ric Flair t-shirt. I remember that, seeing this shirt and saying to myself, this doesn't look like any t-shirt I've ever seen. It almost looks homemade. I imagine that this shirt is ultra rare. I don't know what event it's from. It looks like it was, again, just something that they threw together for the Nature Boy, but man, is it cool, and man, does it scream just flamboyance. That's the right word for this. It just looks like a flamboyant shirt to really capture that side of Ric Flair. And it sold, like I said, for $1,402 1 year ago. And that does it. Which of these shirts was your favorite? Do you agree that the Super Brawl one was the best? Maybe you like the Rick Rude one the best. Maybe the Jim Neidhart one the best. Leave a comment and let us know. There's no wrong answer. Collecting t-shirts is a lot of fun, and I really enjoy counting this one down, like I said, because most of these shirts I've never seen before. So tell me your favorite wrestling memory. Have some fun. Leave a comment, subscribe, like the video. It means more to me than you know. But more than anything, have a great week. We'll see you again next week.
CollectAWrestlePalooza, CollectAWrestlePalooza.